Dad, please. Don't come home tonight. My daughter's voice trembled on the other end of the line. Just 6 words. But something about the way she said them, it felt like my heart dropped right out of my chest. Wasn't what she said exactly, but how she said it. Low, quiet, like she was afraid someone else might hear her. And something else too. Something I couldn't quite place at first. Fear, shame, guilt. I was in my car, parked just outside the gas station when she called. I remember because I hadn't even turned the engine off. Her voice came through the speakers, small and cracked. She never called me like this, not since the divorce. Not since her mother had made sure I was the last one to hear anything important. But tonight was different. Her voice broke through that silence we'd both been sitting in for years. And when she said those words, when I heard the way they landed, I knew something was wrong, terribly wrong. Emily, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, steady. Sweetheart, what's going on? There was a pause, a long one, and I heard something in the background, a voice, not clear, but muffled. Neil, deep. Then she whispered, please, Dad, just listen. Don't come home, not tonight. I pulled out of the parking lot, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping the phone so tight I thought it might snap in half. My thoughts were racing. Was she in trouble? Was someone hurting her? Was this about her mom's new husband? That bastard had always given me a bad feeling. Emily, I said again, firmer now, are you safe? Another silence, then a tiny inhale, like she was holding back tears. I can't talk. I'll call you later. And just like that, she hung up. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and hit the gas. I didn't know what I was driving into, but my gut told me to get there. Now, as I got closer to the neighborhood, everything started to feel off, too quiet, too still. Then, as I turned the last corner onto our street, I saw them, flashing. Lights out red and blue dancing off the windows of houses, lighting up the trees and fences like a crime scene from a movie. My heart pounded. 2 police cars were parked in front of the house. Our house, or what used to be ours, before the courts handed it to her mother. I slowed the car and pulled up a few houses away. I didn't want them to see me just yet. I turned off the headlights and sat there in the dark, watching. There was movement on the front porch. A police officer, talking to someone. I squinted, trying to make out who it was. And then I saw her. Emily. She was sitting on the porch steps, wrapped in a blanket. Her knees pulled to her chest. One of the officers was crouched next to her, speaking gently. She looked so small, so scared. That wasn't the face of a girl grounded or caught sneaking out. That was the face of someone who had seen something they'd never forget. My hands were shaking. I reached for my phone, but stopped. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if I should call or just walk up there. My instincts told me to run to her, but something else, something deeper, told me to wait. The front door opened. Her mother stepped out. Diane. Her hair was a mess, face pale. She looked like she'd just seen a ghost. Or maybe she was the ghost. One of the officers turned to her, asked something. She nodded, glanced at Emily, and looked away. Whatever happened inside that house, it had shaken them all. A few minutes passed. Another car pulled up and marked, but clearly police. A man in a suit stepped out. Detective, probably. He walked over, spoke with the officers, took notes. Diane said something, gesturing toward the backyard. The detective turned, started walking in that direction. That's when I decided to get out of the car. I stepped into the night, every step heavy, my chest tight. As I got closer, one of the officers looked up. Double quote, sir, can I help you? I kept my eyes on Emily. I'm her father. He turned, looked at the other officer. Something passed between them, maybe uncertainty. You should wait here, he said, firm but not unkind. I just want to know she's okay. They didn't move, but Emily, she did. She turned. Her eyes met mine. And in that second, I saw everything. The fear, the confusion, the pain. But also, something else. Relief. She stood up slowly, blankets still around her, and walked toward me. The officers led her. When she reached me, she didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around me and held on like she hadn't in years. I didn't ask any more questions. I just held her back, but inside, my mind was screaming, what the hell happened tonight? And why did my daughter tell me not to come home? She held onto me like I was the last piece of solid ground left in her world. I hadn't felt that from her in years, since before the split. Since before everything between me and Diane went up in flames. For a long moment, I didn't care about the cops, the lights, or the questions piling up in my head. I just held my daughter like I was trying to squeeze all the broken pieces back together, but I could feel it, her heart pounding against my chest, her breathing shallow. She was scared. Whatever happened inside that house, it had shaken her to her core. I gently pulled back to look her in the eyes. Emily, talk to me. She shook her head fast, her eyes darting toward the porch, where her mother stood watching us like a stranger. She looked tired, aged, and guilty all at once. Her arms were crossed. But I could tell it wasn't from the cold. It was a shield. Emily whispered, not here. The officer who had spoken to me earlier stepped forward again, still cautious but softer this time. Sir, we understand this is your daughter, but we're in the middle of a serious investigation. I need to ask you to remain at a distance for now. I looked at Emily, trying to read between the cracks. Do you want me to leave? She gripped my hand tighter and shook her head. No, just stay close. I nodded. I'll be right here. She let go and returned to the porch, sitting back down next to the officer. The other cop moved a little, positioning himself in a way that blocked her from me, not aggressively, but like they were trying to protect her from something or someone. I stepped back to the sidewalk, pacing slowly. The detective had returned from the backyard and was speaking with Diane. She was crying now, not loud, not dramatic, just silent, bitter tears sliding down her face. She kept shaking her head. He scribbled in his notebook, nodded, and looked back toward Emily. I leaned against the lamppost trying to piece it together. I thought about the last time I spoke to Diane. It had been months. She had called to complain that Emily was spending too much time on her phone, said she was becoming secretive. I told her that's what teenagers do. She blamed me, said it was because I was too soft. We ended the call like always, cold, short, and unresolved. But now I saw it. That secretive behavior, it wasn't rebellion, it was protection. She had been holding something in, something that had finally cracked open tonight. Time moved strange after that. Maybe 20 minutes passed, maybe more. Then the detective walked over to me. You're Emily's father. I nodded, yes. What's going on? He looked at me carefully, as if trying to read what kind of man I was. Can I ask where you were tonight between 7 o'clock and 9 p.m.? I blinked. What? It's standard procedure. We're just trying to verify everyone's whereabouts. You understand. I was driving home from work, I said. Stopped at the gas station. My daughter called me. That's when I came straight here. He scribbled something in his notebook. Did she say anything specific on the call? I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I should say everything. She told me not to come home tonight. Her voice was shaky, like she was scared. He nodded slowly, like that matched what he had already heard. Did she say why? No. He looked back toward the house, then returned his gaze to me. I can't disclose much at this point, but your daughter was witness to a serious domestic incident, possibly involving a weapon. My stomach dropped. A weapon? He nodded. We're still collecting evidence, but it appears she may have interrupted a confrontation between her mother and her stepfather. That bastard, that smug, slick bastard Diane married 2 years after our divorce. Mark, what did he do? I asked, my voice lower now, colder. The detective paused. We believe she may have walked in during a physical assault. She ran out of the house and used a neighbor's phone to call the police. When we arrived, the suspect had already fled. There are signs of a struggle inside. I couldn't breathe for a second. She's okay. She's shaken, but physically unharmed. Emotionally, that's going to take some time. I looked at the house. Can I take her with me? The detective looked hesitant. We'll need to ask her some more questions tonight, and she'll likely need to stay with a guardian who wasn't involved in the incident until we sort this out. That could be you, pending a few things. I nodded quickly. Whatever you need, I'll do it. He handed me a card. "We may need to speak again. Try to stay available." He walked away. Emily was still sitting on the steps. I could tell she wanted to come to me again, but she looked torn, like she was being pulled into different directions. Finally, one of the officers helped her up and walked her toward me. She didn't say anything right away, just took my hand. "They said I might be able to go with you tonight," she said softly. "I'm here." I whispered, "You're safe now." She looked up at me, and her voice cracked. "I saw him dead. I saw what he did." I didn't press for details. I didn't want to make her relive it just yet. We walked to my car. She didn't look back. As I opened the door for her, I saw Diane still standing on the porch. Her face was unreadable now, hollow, like someone who finally saw the consequences of every choice she'd made. I got behind the wheel and started the engine. Emily leaned her head against the window, eyes half closed, blankets still around her shoulders. We drove off slowly, past the lights, past the officers, past the house that used to be ours, but had become something else entirely. In the silence of the car, she finally spoke. "I thought he was going to kill her." I didn't respond. I just reached across and gently placed my hand over hers. She didn't pull away. I didn't know what the next few days would look like: police interviews, court orders, therapists, but in that moment, none of it mattered. She was with me, and this time, I wasn't going to let anyone hurt her again. The silence in my car on the drive home was unbearable. Every passing streetlight cast long, stretched shadows across the dashboard, flickering like ghosts from a past I couldn't make sense of. My mind kept replaying Emma's voice over and over, trembling. Broken, warning, "Dad, please don't come home tonight." I could still hear the fear woven between each syllable. What could terrify her so deeply that she'd say something like that? What was she protecting me from? I pulled over just 3 blocks from our house. My hands were shaking too badly to hold the steering wheel. The air inside the car felt thick, heavy with dread. I reached for my phone again, staring at Emma's number. I thought of calling, begging her to tell me what was going on, but I was afraid. Afraid that this time, she might not pick up. Afraid that I'd hear something even worse in her voice. Instead, I just sat there, staring through the windshield at the blurry outlines of the neighborhood. Kids' bikes left on lawns, porch lights glowing like tiny watchful eyes. Everything looked normal, and yet nothing felt right. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I started the car again and took the long way around the block. I parked down the street from my house, careful not to draw attention. As I got out of the car, I felt the weight of my age in my knees, in my back. But it was nothing compared to the weight of fear crushing my chest. I crept along the sidewalk, keeping to the shadows of trees. When I finally reached the corner near our house, I froze. There were still 2 police cars parked outside, their lights off now, but their presence loud in its own way. No officers were in sight. The front door of my home was slightly ajar. That door had never been left open, not once in all the years we'd lived there. The strange mix of instincts kicked in. I crouched behind the hedge, peering at the house, trying to make sense of what was happening. I didn't see Emma. I didn't see anyone. Just silence, like the house had swallowed everything whole. Then I heard a faint creak, like floorboards under slow, cautious steps. From inside the house, someone was still in there. I reached for my phone again, hesitating between calling Emma or dialing the police. But what would I say? That my daughter told me not to come home, and now I'm standing in the dark like some half-crazed man. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the upstairs window, Emma's room, and then a second shadow right behind it. I didn't think. I moved. I circled around the back, slipping through the old wooden gate that always squeaked unless you lifted it just right. I had fixed that gate myself 100 times. Funny how your hands remember what your mind forgets in times like this. The back door was locked, but the key was still hidden under the 3rd flower pot to the left. I slid it in, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The house was dim, too quiet. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon. Emma must have been baking earlier. The kind of smell that usually brought comfort, but tonight it made my stomach turn. I crept through the kitchen, every nerve in my body alive and alert. I could hear voices, now faint, muffled, and one of them Was Emma's. She was pleading with someone. I told you. Please, just let me explain. And then a male voice. Low and forceful. You should have thought of that before. The rage that welled up in me was immediate and uncontrollable. I didn't even recognize myself in that moment. All I knew was that someone was threatening my daughter in our own home, and I wasn't going to let it happen. I moved toward the stairs, careful not to step on the creaky one at the bottom. I had memorized every inch of that house, every sound it made, every silence it held. When I reached the landing, I could hear Emma's voice more clearly. Please don't hurt him. He doesn't know anything. I didn't know who he was. But the fear in her voice, it broke something inside me. I pushed open her bedroom door, and there she was, standing between her bed and the dresser, shielding someone behind her. It wasn't who I expected, a boy, maybe a teen, disheveled, pale, clearly terrified, and in front of them, holding something metallic, maybe a knife, maybe a piece of broken furniture, was a man I had never seen before. He looked wrong. Not in the obvious ways. In the way his eyes didn't blink when they should. The way he held his shoulders like someone used to threats, used to dominance. Emma screamed when she saw me. Dad, no, get out. But it was too late. The man turned. His eyes locked onto mine. And for a second, we just stood there, the three of us frozen in some awful standoff. Then he lunged. I didn't think. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, Emma's metal floor lamp, and swung it hard. It connected. With a loud crash, the man stumbled back, stunned. Emma rushed forward, screaming for the boy to run. The boy, whoever he was, leapt out the window onto the porch roof and down into the yard. I grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her behind me. You okay? I asked, out of breath. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's him, she whispered. He's the reason I called. Police sirens were approaching again, louder now. Someone must have seen the boy jump. Or maybe the neighbors finally realized something was wrong. Either way, it didn't matter. Help was coming. The man on the floor was groaning, trying to push himself up. I kept the lamp raised, just in case. Don't move, I warned him, my voice shaking but firm. Minutes later, officers burst through the door. Emma cried out for them to stop, explaining as fast as she could that this was the man who'd been threatening her. The officers quickly took control, cuffing the intruder, dragging him away, and finally bringing order to the chaos. But the damage was already done. In my daughter's eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen before, a deep, haunted kind of fear that would take a long time to heal. And in my own chest, a guilt that I hadn't known something was wrong sooner, that I hadn't protected her better, that this home we'd built had become a place of nightmares for her. We were safe now, but we weren't okay. Not yet. I stood in the hallway of my daughter's apartment, the silence thicker than ever before. Every few seconds, the sound of a creaking pipe or a car passing outside made me twitch. Claire sat curled up on the edge of the couch, her fingers clasped tightly together, her knuckles pale from pressure. I hadn't sat down yet. I was pacing, heart still beating like a war drum in my chest. I didn't want to ask again, but I needed answers. Real ones. I turned to her slowly and said, Claire, I need to know all of it, not pieces, not hints. I need to understand what the hell's going on. She looked up at me with a kind of exhaustion I'd never seen on her face before. Not even during her worst years in high school. Not when she got her heart broken or when she failed that chemistry class she cried about for days. This was different. This was the weight of secrets, ones she'd clearly been carrying alone for far too long. I didn't know how to tell you, Dad, she began, her voice hoarse. Because if I told you, it would make it real. And I was trying to pretend it wasn't. I sat down finally, across from her, elbows on my knees. Just tell me, I can take it. I have to. She took a shaky breath and started. It started about 6 months ago. At first, it was small. I noticed some money missing from my savings account. I thought maybe I'd just miscalculated, but then I started getting weird texts from an unknown number. Things like these. Not who you think he is, or ask your dad about 1999. My blood ran cold. I leaned back slowly. 1999, she nodded. I didn't want to believe any of it. I blocked the number. I thought it was some sick joke, but then someone broke into my apartment while I was at work. Nothing was stolen, but things were moved, like someone had been searching for something. I swallowed hard. Did you report it? I did, she said, but the police couldn't find any evidence. No fingerprints, no forced entry. They said maybe I left the door unlocked, but I know I didn't. I double-check every time, and the texts, they kept coming. Worse, she whispered. They started following me, or at least letting me know they were watching. I get messages describing what I was wearing, where I was. One said, "You're your father's daughter, smart, but not smart enough." It felt like the floor was tilting. My stomach dropped out. Claire kept going. I did some digging. I tried to trace the number. Nothing. It was encrypted, routed through layers of anonymous servers. But then the messages started getting more personal. They talked about you, about things I didn't know. They said you were involved in something back then, something dangerous, that you made enemies. I stared at her, unable to breathe for a moment. Claire, I never told you everything about that time. I had my reasons. I know, she said, but they know, and they're using it. I got up again, pacing now. The memories I'd buried deep, the things I thought would never see. The light of day were bubbling back to the surface. 1999. It had been the worst year of my life. The business collapse, the people I'd borrowed money from, the favors I had to call in. The one night that changed everything. They know what happened, Dad. That's why I didn't want you to come home. She stood up too, holding a printed piece of paper. This came in the mail today. She handed it to me. It was a photo of me young, bearded, standing in the shadows next to a black SUV. A man next to me, face blurred. But I knew who it was, and I knew who took that photo. My mouth went dry. This was supposed to be gone. That man, he died 3 years ago. Someone else has the files now, she said. They're using them to get to you. And they think the best way to do that is through me. Everything started making a terrible kind of sense. The police outside my house, the panic in Claire's voice, the fear. The carefully constructed life I had built after that year was now crumbling. Claire, listen to me, I said, gripping her shoulders. We have to go to the police. Now, this isn't just harassment. This is blackmail, stalking, and maybe more. She shook her head. The police can't help us. I tried, twice. Every time I go to them, something happens, the file gets lost. The officer changes. One time, the detective on my case just disappeared. I backed away slightly. What do you mean disappeared? Transferred. No one knew. Why? He didn't even say goodbye. I sat down again, my mind racing. This was bigger than I thought. It wasn't just someone with a grudge. This was orchestrated, deliberate, calculated, and I had brought it into her life by trying to protect her from it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have told you everything years ago. But I thought I could bury the past and keep you safe. I was wrong. Claire sat beside me. So what do we do? I looked her in the eyes. You disappear. For now, I know someone who owes me. He helps people vanish, get new identities. We leave tonight. She blinked at me. Seriously, dead serious. You're not safe. I'm not safe. But we can be if we vanish before they realize we're onto them. She didn't argue. That alone told me how scared she really was. We packed a small bag each. I grabbed the burner phone from my safe, one I hadn't touched in years. I called the number I hoped still worked. Hello, came a gruff voice. It's me, I said. There was a long silence. Then, I hoped you were dead. Not yet, I replied. I need an exit. To people. Tonight. You still got the files? No, but they do. Another silence. Then, okay. I'll text you a location. 1 hour. We left everything behind. Our photos, our clothes, even our phones. We drove in silence. Headlights slicing through the night like knives. Claire held my hand the whole way. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? We arrived at the warehouse. A man stood outside, familiar but aged. He nodded at me. Inside. Quick. We followed him in. There were 2 new passports on the table. Cash, train tickets, IDs. This is it, he said. Once you walk out that door, you're ghosts. You sure? I looked at Claire. She nodded slowly. And just like that, we disappeared. My name was no longer Michael. Claire was no longer Claire. We were someone else now. Free, but hunted. Alive, but always looking over our shoulders. Still, as we boarded the train, I looked at her and whispered, "You saved me. That night, when you called, you saved both of us." She smiled, for the first time in weeks. "I just didn't want to lose you, Dad." And I promised her silently, from that moment on I'd never let anyone hurt her again. Asterisk, if this story gripped your soul, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We bring you tales where betrayal meets justice and the human spirit rises from the ashes. Asterisk, hit the bell so you never miss a new twist. Until next time, remember, revenge is sweetest when it's deserved.